What's going on? It's Friday, February 6th. Let's talk PlayStation. Okay, so last week we were talking about that Square Enix teaser website for a possible PS4 exclusive. Well, that is true, and we do know what it is now. It's Spelunkers Z. It's a new Spelunker game, only for Japan right now, coming March 19th. Free-to-play game. I think clearly a lot of us were like hoping it was a big game or something. You know how the internet, like, we all like to pump it up and let it go to our heads, but that is what it is. Not some major, huge title that's going to be going like worldwide or anything, and you see what I'm saying. So that's what it is. It's Spelunkers Z. Anyway, moving on to our next news story. Not a huge news story, but so basically Sony's going to be rebranding their Video Unlimited service on PSN, so like their videos and stuff. Kind of coinciding it with the fact that they're, killing off Music Unlimited, bringing on Spotify and calling that PlayStation Music. Now, their video service is going to be called PlayStation Video. So PlayStation Video, PlayStation Music, kind of unify it and everything. And they're still saying that PlayStation Vue, their TV streaming service, is still coming early 2015. It still is early 2015. There's not a whole lot of time left, so we got to be expecting that pretty soon. But I like this. I've always been pretty vocal about that. Like, I want Sony to be more dynamic and straightforward with their services and not have everything so fragmented and disjointed. So I like that they're trying to simplify it more. Next news story, Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog, obviously, making a lot of headlines this past week. One big interesting topic was Uncharted 4 and the possibility of it having 60 frames per second. So in an interview with Game Informer, Bruce Straley, the game's director, was discussing the fact of how 60 frames per second in Uncharted 4 would be, and I quote, really fucking hard to achieve, obviously. And we've had, you guys have heard my rant on this topic before. When a developer is making a console game, keyword console game, it's a closed box, closed hardware. They're choosing their frame rate. They're choosing 30 frames per second most of the time. It's not that they can't get to 60. It's that they're choosing 30 and making their games look better. Maybe adding more NPCs and stuff like that. Focusing on resolution, pushing graphical fidelity, all that jazz. And with Naughty Dog, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Naughty Dog is the kind of developer that they do really want to make gorgeous, beautiful games. And it is kind of like, the one thing here, the one sketchy topic here is that earlier they did say like they were targeting 60 frames per second, which I think right now they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. They're probably wishing that they hadn't said that earlier, because I think now they're getting too comfortable with how good the game looks, and they're making it look even better and better and better. But making it better, better, and better looking, it means that they're probably going to have to scale back down the frame rate or something. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be once the game actually comes out. Maybe they'll do an unlocked frame rate. Maybe they will do 60 and they'll scale back some, the look of it and everything. But I think they'll probably end up just doing a solid 30 and just make the game look as good as they can. And another news story this past week with Naughty Dog was they were discussing how they don't want to go back to games like Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter. And even though this was making headlines this past week and people were asking me about this, it's not news. They've been very vocal about this for a very long time. They don't want to go back to cartoony looking games like that. They don't. They've been very vocal about saying, we want to do very mature, realistic, story-driven games like Uncharted and The Last of Us. So not surprising at all. I understand that completely too, because they made really fantastic games out of it with Uncharted and Last of Us. So, it's disappointing for me as a Jak fan, and people always say like, oh, but they can still do all that stuff with Jak and Daxter, Crash. They can still do like realism and a really heavy story driven. I understand that, but come on, you can't be stupid here. You got to understand what they mean though when they say they want to do more mature games like Uncharted and Last of Us. They want to do actual people and things, real emotion and all that jazz. You clearly understand the point they're trying to get at. So there's that. So one big headline this past week is that Netflix apparently is predicting that Sony and Microsoft will re-release PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but they will be 4K capable of 4K resolution. Now, when I first read this news story, I was a little bit like, what? That's stupid, because initially, at least from what I recall, way back in 2013 when this was still like pre-release with Xbox One and PlayStation 4 before they came out, both Microsoft and Sony said like these machines are capable of 4K video, or like we could certainly support that in the future. They don't support it natively. Obviously, it's not going to support 4K games, but they could certainly support 4K video down the line. So when I saw this news story, my nose really itches. When I saw this news story, I was like, well, do they have to re-release entire new hardware for it if they said that they could just support it down the road? So I don't know. I mean, I saw that and I was kind of like, what? That's kind of weird. Like, no. I mean, realistically, like, Sony is definitely going to, like, revise PS4 at some point. We just don't know when. We don't know when Slim PS4 is going to come, if it'll be, you know, later this year, if it'll be early next year or whatever. But it wouldn't surprise me entirely if they did, like, hardware revised capabilities of 4K on a PS4 Slim. Same with Microsoft. If they want to do it hardware-wise while they're already going to, you know, actually redesign the actual hardware. It's not like they're going to re-release the same looking box PS4 that we all know, but just 4K capable. Like, they definitely wouldn't do that. Microsoft definitely wouldn't do that. If they were going to support it hardware wise, they would do it when they actually redesign the entire box. It's just a matter of when. And Netflix thinks it's this year. I don't think it would be that soon. Granted, it would be 2 years, but I don't know. I just don't think it would be that soon. But, you know, anything's possible, I guess. Alright, the big news story this past week is that Sony has sold Sony Online Entertainment, and they're selling it to Columbus Nova, an investment firm. This is kind of a big news story. This is one of Sony's developers. I mean, Sony Online Entertainment is responsible for EverQuest, DC Universe Online, H1Z1, PlanetSide 2, you know, big games. But this is Sony's PC developer. So now, a lot of people are asking me about this, saying like, hey, Sony just lost one of their developers, and they just lost like all their exclusive games, because the details here are that when Sony did sell off Sony Online Entertainment, their properties are going with them. Sony is not going to be owning PlanetSide 2 anymore, H1Z1, any of that stuff. Sony Online Entertainment is going to be retaining all the rights to those games, and they have already commented on the possibility of doing like multi-platform stuff, and they have openly said, yes, we are totally going to do that. The CEO of Sony Online Entertainment, John Smedley, tweeted saying that he can't wait to make Xbox One games, because now he can. It's they are now a multi-platform studio, and they can do whatever they want. So what are the actual implications of this? Like, why did this happen? Blah blah blah. I don't see. People looked at it and initially went like, whoa, what's going on here? I think this actually totally makes sense, to be honest, because Sony Online Entertainment, that's like Sony's PC developer. Like, they are a PC developer first and foremost. Like, consoles for them like were a secondary thing. Like, we still don't have PlanetSide 2, PlayStation 4, you know what I'm saying? Like, H1Z1 on PS4 is probably still far, far out. They were PC first and foremost. This didn't necessarily benefit Sony Computer Entertainment that well. You know, this wasn't a huge PlayStation thing. They are a PC developer. If there's one developer Sony had to get rid of, it would have been SOE, and it turns out it is SOE, because it's really not a total loss. When SOE makes a game, it's also available on PC. It's not like a huge console push, especially when they are not focusing on console development. PC is always going to be their target platform and their main platform for all their games coming out. So it's not really a major loss, especially when Xbox One finally gets, like, what, DCUO in the next, 2 years or something? I can't imagine they're going to work on all these games fast. They're only one developer, you know, they only got so many hands. They can only work on so many things at one time, so I can't imagine they're going to be pumping out console games that quickly when, again, PC is their first and foremost. And this was a sale. Like, Sony, you know, got rid of them. Obviously, there's expenses to sell them off, but I think this is part of Sony's strategy. They didn't really need, you know, they didn't really benefit from SOE that much. What could they possibly benefit more? Another developer that will make console games. So maybe Ready at Dawn, maybe Quantic Dream, maybe another developer. Maybe they just want to fund more third-party exclusive stuff, like, you know, Street Fighter V, you know, something that would actually benefit them. Because SOE, in my eyes, didn't benefit them that much. Probably made, you know, I mean, yeah, they probably like made Sony money, but it's just, it seems like they could have something better in their place that would benefit Sony Computer Entertainment and not just, say, the profit aspect of it. Yeah, it still made the money, but what can we do instead of SOE and push PlayStation, push PS4, because, you know, games division's doing well for Sony. They are going to keep putting money into that, going to keep focusing on it and capitalize on it. So I don't think it's a big deal. I actually kind of think it was a smart move, but that remains to be seen. We'll have to see. So for our last news story, I find this really interesting, and I love hearing about stuff like this. Sony President Worldwide Studios, Shuhei Yoshida, we all know him, talking at the 2015 DICE Summit, discussing the kind of the business side of yearly releases, annual released games like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. And he basically flat out said he hates them. And he kind of like divulged a few details about this and sort of the early days of PlayStation and how sequels work and everything. Kind of discussing how, you know, the development side of games isn't necessarily correlated well with the marketing side of games, because the sort of the marketing people, the investing people, don't understand the games industry that well and don't understand the development process and how long games take to make, and how development time for games kept increasing year over year, and how, you know, marketing firms would want sequels, but that didn't necessarily translate well, or at least, you know, in Sony's eyes, they didn't feel that it translates well, at least initially. But Yoshida was very upfront about that, and while he respects the developers that say, you know, constantly push out games like these on a yearly basis, he pretty much said like he does not like them. And you know, a lot of people are super vocal about this online, where they're like, oh, I fucking Call of Duty every year, Assassin's Creed every year, and blah 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 blah. And they do keep making money every year. That's the thing. And I don't have a problem with it really, because I will buy what I want. I don't have to buy the new games every year. I don't have to, you know, I don't have to do anything. It doesn't affect me in the slightest. But I like how, you know, he's showing that passion there, right? I really like that, and I like how he divulges those details. And he also discussed why Sony Computer Entertainment is called Sony Computer Entertainment, which I actually knew this beforehand, but it was like nice to hear him say it again. You know, kind of always spread that information out there over and over again, get more people to know about it, which was, they didn't want to call it like Sony Game Entertainment back then, because they wanted the PlayStation to sound more of an adult toy, not a kid's toy. That was one of, actually, a little history lesson, that was one of Sony's biggest concerns when they greenlit the idea to actually do the PlayStation. Initially, back then, the CEO of Sony did not want to make a game system. They didn't want to make the PlayStation because they didn't want to make toys, quote unquote. They were consumer electronics, and they wanted to make, you know, consumer electronics, adult, you know, machines and everything, right? Computers and all that. So that's why they chose to call it like Sony Computer Entertainment. That's why they wanted to push the boundaries of 3D and, you know, putting games on CD format, pushing memory and everything. That was kind of Sony's idea behind calling themselves Sony Computer Entertainment. Really cool shit, man. Anyway, those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week on Let's Talk PlayStation. Give you a little update. I'm still working a lot, so sorry about that, but I need money. Still doing like 12-hour days. That's kind of bogus. Adult life sucks, but I'm only going to be doing those for like the next 2 weeks. So I'm pretty pumped, because after 2 weeks, my hours are going to go down. I'm going to get more free time so I can finally play more games, because honestly, that's what I want to do more than anything else. So then, you know, so I'm going to play games first, then I'll actually make YouTube videos. Because like I said, I want to make a whole bunch of new videos, because I'm really slacking here. That's pretty much it, just keeping you guys in the loop. So that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you so much for talking with me. I'll see you guys all next Friday.